What's good to the tribe? It's Wanaghi. Wanted to stop by and drop this clip off to you guys. But before we start, stop, hit the like button, and I appreciate you guys. I hope everybody's feeling safe, secure, and as healthy as can be. So we're still going on this journey, trying to collect all these pieces to this puzzle. And I want to drop off this clip. And this is a lady that has been doing this type of research for a while. She had been doing it for a while. And I want you guys to actually listen to this whole entire clip. If you clicked on here, make sure you got a good 20 minutes to listen to this. Or listen to it while you're rolling and doing whatever you're doing through your day. Like I say, everybody sees the world through their own lenses. We're all trying to regain these pieces of this puzzle and put it back together. And like I say, everybody's not going to see it how you see it. Your truth isn't my truth. You weren't raised, or your relatives aren't the same as mine. So what I experienced in my lifetime, you didn't experience in yours, so you can't tell me how you feel about a scenario that I give you. So I just want people to understand that. And I want people to dodge all hijacks, like Big Bro Opie say. Dodge the hijacks. We already know a lot of these older relatives, ancestors, elders, they were Afrocentric. We were all brought up on this fucking lie. A lot of us went to AME churches. My grandfather was an AME pastor. I grew up in an AME church. This is what we knew. But now that we've been put in society where social media and internet and information is at your fingertips, it's even easier for us to find these lies and to find the messed up scenarios in the situation. So back then they weren't researching it as much as we researched it, as far as being able to give parts from this state or give parts from this state or have this bit of pieces to the puzzle and get those bit of pieces to the puzzle, because now all we have to do is upload shit. You dig? So I just want people to listen to it, regardless if she's saying African or she's saying a lot of different names in here, naming different people. Native American. Understand it, eat the meat, and spit out the bones. But she dropped some jewels in here. Some pure D jewels, regardless of what she labeled it. And she starts out how I always say, everybody's gonna see this their own way. So you have to take it in your own way and put it out there. She's going in on the Irish not being able to fish, Christopher Columbus. Just different things like that, saying we've been here forever, period. But let's get to the clip. I hope people enjoy. And like I say, watch it all the way through. Regardless, this is just bits and pieces that we're putting back together. We got to take the good from everybody and make it our own. You dig? But let's get it.
As a non-white male, I can't afford to be anything but subjective, because if I don't look at the world from my subjective personality and understanding and consciousness, I'm not going to see the world. You know, I'm going to see everybody else's world. So what I want to kind of do today is take you on a 50,000 year ago trip. See, because if you want to be African-centered, and we have all these approaches on how to reach your consciousness and stuff, but if you want to deal with African-centeredness, you've got to begin with Africans. You've got to begin with Africa. Now, I'm an African Native American. That bothers a lot of people because they want me to be just be African. But my husband's African, Jamaican, Caribbean, or West Indian, whatever, comes up. My father was African, Canadian. Everybody's African, Ghanaian, African, Nigerian, African, Brazilian. Only African Americans are just African. Now, that's not a criticism. That may be a very powerful position because we represent the diaspora and we work together. But it requires some insights. It requires us to move consciously to a level where when we think about Africa. Now, most of you think that the indigenous people in this hemisphere, or most of you have been taught that the indigenous people in this hemisphere came over the ice bridge in the Bering Strait. Ain't no black people been running all through Asia and come running across no ice bridge and come running down here from Vancouver down to Tierra del Fuego in South America, peopling this continent. Do you believe that? Do you really believe that? I mean, I know Diop says it, Diop says it, Sheikh Anta Diop says it, I know Ivan Van Sertima says it, I know all of the scholars say it, but I am telling you, in my African Native American soul, I know ain't no little black people went running over no ice bridge to populate this hemisphere. Guess where the hypothesis came from? It came from Thomas Jefferson popularized the idea. At the time, he was stealing the land in the Louisiana Purchase. It came at a time when they wanted you to think everybody in this hemisphere was also an immigrant, so they were just later immigrants, so then they, therefore, would be entitled to the land. Are you following me? Come on, most of you have Native American indigenous blood. But if everybody was started in Africa 40, 50, 100, 200,000 years ago, we weren't afraid of the ocean. Europeans are afraid of the ocean. They got the Loch Lomond monster, they're afraid of the sea. The Irish nearly starved to death because they didn't know how to fish. Dumb suckers. The so-called pilgrims in Plymouth, if it weren't for Massasoit and Samoset and Squanto, would have died. And you all wouldn't be around here celebrating the first harvest, which you had mistakenly called Thanksgiving. And those dishonest suckers wrote back to England and said the natives are now paying us tribute after they got through saving these poor suckers from starving to death who had just gotten off of a boat that they stayed on for an entire year because they didn't know what to do on the land until the Native Americans said, this is how you plant corn. This is how you toil the soil. This is how you fish, you dumb suckers. This is real. This is real. If you want to be African, you have to be African. You have to think, what would the world be like if there were I think this all the time. It won't be difficult once you get in the habit. What would the world be like if there were no white people? Hey, don't laugh at me. There was a time. There was a time when there were no white people. 1492 is an afterthought. It's not even a semicolon in history. It's not even a dash, like an aside. Oh, by the way, 1492, we have documented evidence of human culture, civilization, whatever you want to call it, going back 120,000 years in this hemisphere. American Genesis, 120,000 years old. Here's Tony Martin. So, okay. Well, even if you don't want to read it, one of the great chapters in this book is the sinking of the Bering Strait. The sinking. Now, what am I trying to get across to you? I'm trying to get across to you, I don't know whether what I'm telling you is true or even tenable, that Africans, Australoids, Negroids, Pygmoids, whatever those terms are, inhabited this hemisphere 50,000 years ago. 50,000 years ago means that the European, the Caucasoid, was still a Neanderthal. So we know he ain't got on no boat and came over here, right? But if there were Australoids and Negroids and Pygmoids over here, you know, little black men and brown men with nappy hair and thick noses and lips and big butts and long arms and long legs. Let me take you on a trip. You're telling me that they went all the way through Asia, they became Mongoloids or leucoderms, and then they mixed with the African, and they became Mongoloids, and then they came over the Bering Strait, and then they came down to the equatorial belt, and then when they got in the equatorial belt, they changed back into little black men. You picked up some melanin on the trip and through the ice, because when the so-called Europeans got here, the people in the equatorial belt were all little black men in the Fiji Islands, in the Hawaiian Islands. You go there today, all around the equatorial belt, everybody has an African base. And I suggest to you that they got on a raft, got on a current, and if you look at Van Sertima's work or Joseph Harris' work or anybody's work, you will see that you can get on the currents and ride around the oceans if you're not looking for monsters. Now, my father's people in Nova Scotia on one side are the Micmacs up there by Chittagong Bay, near the Inuits, which some people call Eskimos, but Eskimos is someplace else. But what is the fundamental thing about Native American ship-going crafts? They don't sink. You sink, but they don't sink. They take trees, and Africans do too, and they take trees and they carve them out and they put them on the water, and those will hit, and they are ocean-bearing crafts. Europeans make boats with holes in them. Okay? All I'm saying is this. You see this book? It's called Forbidden Archaeology. Forbidden Archaeology. Forbidden. It's written by white. And in it is a compilation of everything that people found that the standard group of so-called intellectuals have rejected. You gotta think it is. If you come up with an idea that does not support the prevailing accepted interpretation of the world, then it goes in this book. It doesn't go, and you have to understand when you do archaeology, okay, you have to disrupt the area that you got it out. There is no documentation of anything in the Bering Strait. Not unless you can bury through tons of ice, you know, and find it, you know it's not there. They have no proof. We as African scholars are up against the lies of Europeans. And we don't need to spend our time arguing with them. Right? We need to go inside our head and say, there was a time when there were no Europeans in the world. What was the world like? What is the diaspora? What are the migrational patterns of the world? How did all these black people get in India, what we call India? How did all these black people get in Australia? How did all these black people get here in this hemisphere? And how long have they been here? And don't use 1492 or even the 11th century. And then when they got here, and I really get upset about this. And they say, you came before Columbus. Well, what did you find when you got here? Me. We were here. And how did we get here? Because we left the origins of humanity and we migrated all over the world. And we need to take credit for that. And we need to look at the common cultural bearings of the people. Native American culture is so similar to African culture. Similar. Even the blues, even the drumming, even the dancing, even the pyramids, even the thought, even the concept of direction. You know, not just north, east, south, and west, but each direction means something. The east is the beginning, the south is the sun, and they all have colors, and the west is this is Native American. And then you have to be centered. Things mean something. Jake Carruthers told us about the sacredness of the womb of the word. I'm into the sacredness of the womb. But it's the same. And we need to understand it. You know how Native Americans say, pale face speak with forked tongue? Isn't that a statement of saying, be careful with the way you speak? Think about the way you speak. Think about the way you hear the drums here, you hear the African drum. They're giving you the rhythm of the mother, the rhythm of the heart, the rhythm of the pulsation of the world. Native American drumming is boring as hell. Why? Because they are trying to recreate the atmosphere of the universe. They're trying to blend in. They're trying to deal with sound. Ah, eh, e, o, u. Each one means something. Each one represents a cardinal virtue and value that you are throwing out into the universe. They are not sterile like Europeans. They don't have what you call rhetoric and logic. They speak in metaphor. My grandmother used to say, here with an eye of a needle, you get back with an eye of a needle. I was about 8 years old. I said, well, damn, I can barely spread a needle. You know, Mary, how dumb we are. But that's not the same thing as what goes around comes around. If you give a little bit, you give a little bit. You know, because you are supposed to learn from the wisdom, but in your learning, as Jake Carruthers said this morning, you gotta listen. But even more important, after you listen, you gotta think. You know, what you heard, what does that mean? What are these old folks telling us? And what do they expect us to understand after we hear the message? And then, what are we supposed to do? We, not I, not me, but we. What are we supposed to do after we learn and hear the message? That's all basic to Africans and Native Americans. Europeans are an anathema in the arena of humanity. Right? They are the only group of people, the ones who think, the Europeans, who think that they can fight nature. Everybody has to deal with nature because we are part of nature. But they actually believe they can get a phone booth, a red and blue uniform, jump out there and stop a hurricane. They tell you dumb stuff like Easter bunnies lay eggs and reindeer fly and big fat white men in red outfits come down chimneys in projects that don't even have heat. They tell you lies in a sentence. Columbus discovered America and the natives were friendly. In the same sentence. And you sit there, and if I have any message to tell you today, it's that we have to take our African insight, our African paranoia. We have to read whatever these professors wrote. And we have to say, I wonder what's wrong with that. Because they are dedicated to the lie. And our struggle is to find the truth. And we cannot use them. We have to use them to some degree, but we can't use them as the paradigm, as the route to the truth. They can only show us where not to go. And like Martin Luther King said, this is a burning house. These people are alienated. These people, their whole projection is to get into space. And I think, we ought to send them there.
So that was just a clip. I hope you guys enjoyed on this Thursday. Just want to drop a little bit of something off to you guys. And everybody should know who this is, especially if you've been on this journey researching. You know all these elders and ancestors that have been dropping these videos forever because everybody's been showing these videos and these clips forever. So just go back on these people. It might be something you missed that they said. You might have missed a jewel. You know how you can hear a song and it's going so hard body, like you into the beat, and then all of a sudden you re-listen to it a day or two ago, or a day or two from here, and it's like, damn, I missed that whole fucking bar right there. This is the same way. We have to go back on this shit. What they say, practice beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. Have you ever heard that? We have to keep working at this. If we want to be the best and be able to show this, we have to be able to show this. Genealogy is the only way to show who you are. Know who you are. Know thyself. Shout out Carrie Bay for that. Know thyself. But I love you guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Definitely share. If you mess with me, definitely support the channel. Fellas up, tribe up, wise up, rise up.